Voting is considered one of the most important rights in America. The ability to elect officials that govern us is a fundamental element of democracy. The most important of these elected officials is the president. Voting on the office of president is something that many Americans consider to be their civic duty. However, with the voting system currently in place, many people are asking their question: does their vote really matter? In this speech, I am going to explain the problem with the Electoral College in the US and what we can do to fix it. I have studied the Electoral College over the past couple decades and observed its impact on presidential elections in the US, and in this speech, I am going to explain the origin of the Electoral College, the problem with it, and how we can fix it. So, to start off, what is the Electoral College? Well, when the Founding Fathers designed the government, they created a system to elect the president where each state cast a number of votes, or electoral votes. These votes were based on the size of the state and come from the majority voice of that state. So, essentially, each state has an election, and the candidate that receives the majority of the votes in the state get the electoral votes allotted to that particular state. This is a winner-take-all system in that the winner of the state receives all the electoral votes in the system. This has changed slightly over the years, as originally most states did it on a regional basis where candidates could get electoral votes based on regions within the states. However, most states now do the winner-take-all system except Nebraska and Maine. Okay, so the problem with this system is that it is winner take all. So whether a candidate wins by 1 or 1 million votes, they're still going to take all the electoral votes in that state. This essentially negates the power of the minority voice in the state and allows for the chance of an anti-majority outcome, or an election where a candidate wins the popular vote but loses the electoral vote. We saw this in 2000 with Al Gore and George Bush, where Al Gore won the popular vote, but George W. Bush won the electoral vote, and also in the most recent election in 2016 when Trump won the electoral vote, but Clinton won the popular vote. What this graph here shows the breakdown of the states in the 2016 election between Trump and Clinton. All the red states went to Trump and the blue states went to Clinton, and the states that are lighter colored were more contested. So we can see that Trump won a lot of the contested states. So he got all the electoral votes for those states, and those in the state that voted for Clinton, which because it was a contested state was a pretty good amount, didn't have any effect on the election. This is partially why Trump was able to win the electoral vote without winning the popular vote. This means that the Electoral College has a strong bias toward battleground states. So what a battleground state means is that most states in America are pretty partisan, meaning that they always vote for one candidate or the other. For example, California generally always votes Democrat, and Montana always votes Republican. However, there are some states that can go either way because the population is pretty balanced. And these are really the only states in the Electoral College system where individual votes actually matter. Because if people are voting in a partisan state and they are in the minority, they will have absolutely no effect on the election. This has also created a lack of incentive for candidates to campaign in partisan states, because if they are not going to win the majority, they have no incentive to win more of the minority. So why was this system implemented? Well, originally the founders didn't trust the popular vote. What this means is that they believed the public had lacked the intelligence and knowledge to effectively choose a candidate. They also believed that the Electoral College would balance the power between small and large states. As Alexander Hamilton, one of the founding fathers, put it, a small number of persons selected by their fellow citizens from the general mass will most likely possess the information and discernment requisite to such complicated decisions. Now, this is some kind of complicated old school language, but essentially what it means is that they believe that the majority within a state would be able to have the knowledge and intelligence to correctly select a proper candidate. However, they also believe that there would be a minority in each state who would be uneducated and unable to select a proper candidate, So the Electoral College would amplify the majority voice and eliminate the uneducated minority voice that would be disrupting the election. And while this may or may not have worked during the time of the Founding Fathers, now with the advent of social media and online news, there is so much information out there that most people have the tools to make an informed decision. So we can really no longer make this argument today. So if it is so outdated, why hasn't the Electoral College been changed? Well, some of it has to do with partisan politics. Over the years, different candidates from different parties have argued that the Electoral College benefits one party over another, and while this may have been true at certain times, it does not justify the fact that we are not getting a voice as a people. Also, counting the votes of the country would be somewhat of a daunting task because it would be counting every ballot and would increase the chance of a mistake or fraud being placed. So, due to this, the Electoral College has been largely ignored by politicians over the past century, except to change the number of Electoral College votes in certain states as the population in those states increased or decreased. So what should be done about this problem? Well, the simple answer would be to implement a popular vote, or tally up all the votes in America and decide on a president based on who received the most votes. This is how we elect governors, which govern each state, so it seems like to elect the person that governs the country, we should do it the same way. This has received bipartisan support from time to time because a lot of people believe that the electoral college system is outdated, but many people are unwilling or unable to get enough votes to actually change the system. We have seen some recent activity in the 2020 election with Democratic candidate Elizabeth Warren calling to eliminate the Electoral College because, as she put it, it had a strong bias toward the small states. This is a good idea, however, I believe she is presenting it with the wrong reason. The reason she is presenting this is based on the 2016 election where Trump won over Clinton even though Clinton won the populist vote. However, in this election, Trump won the majority of the large states and Clinton won the majority of the small states. So the fact that the Electoral College has a bias toward the large states wouldn't really apply. We've also seen House Democrats pushing to eliminate the Electoral College based on the fact that Democratic candidates lost to Republican candidates even though they won the popular vote both in 2000 and 2016. There is some merit to this, and current voter distribution in the battleground states somewhat favors Republican candidates. However, this can change from time to time. So, to sum it up, the Electoral College is outdated, and it goes against everything that democracy stands for. It makes an individual vote meaningless and is untenable in modern society. So please, support your local politician in their efforts to change the system and make your vote count.